T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
They'd set up televisions in all the classrooms throughout the school. It was a roller coaster ride all that year because it was a huge media thing when she was chosen.
Kevin Swope was a senior in high school in January of 1986 at Concord High School in New Hampshire, where Christa McAuliffe, or Mrs. McAuliffe, as her students called her, was a teacher.
She was a fun person. She was very bright. She was very willing to do new things, and it wasn't just a job to her.
Kevin never had Mrs. McAuliffe in the classroom, but knew her very well, as she was an advisor to many of the programs he was involved in, like youth and government. He even went on a week-long trip with her to Washington, D.C. for Close Up, a program that allowed students to explore the Capitol and meet U.S. representatives and senators.
She had a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of energy, which of course is one of the things that NASA focused on and did her so well in the competition.
The teacher who will be going into space, Christa McAuliffe.
Kevin described it as surprising that his teacher from little Concord, New Hampshire, was selected by NASA for their Teacher in Space project. As soon as President Ronald Reagan and NASA announced the project in 1984, Christa immediately jumped at the opportunity, and out of thousands of candidates within the national search, she came out on top.
Followed by Christa McAuliffe, Teacher in Space. Ellison Onizuka.
Kevin says he knew Mrs. McAuliffe would be great for the mission, a mission rooted in education. Once in orbit, McAuliffe would teach from space, have lessons, and even one-on-one conversations with students.
I remember seeing her in the hall before school, right after I'd heard the news on the radio that morning that she had been picked. We knew she was one of the finalists, but when she'd actually been picked to be the person to go on the mission, I saw her. I said, congratulations. And so that was my last sort of one-on-one talk with her.
T-minus 15 seconds.
After numerous delays, on the morning of January 28, 1986, the Challenger space shuttle prepared for liftoff at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
The ground crew gives McAuliffe an apple for the teacher, and wishes of good luck.
The world watched. Mrs. McAuliffe's students watched as their teacher, the first American civilian selected to go into space, took off, along with 6 other members of the Challenger crew.
And liftoff of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
I was in lunchroom with my girlfriend at the time, and then we actually only watched like the first 30 seconds of it, and then she had to get something from the art room, and then we were going to go to the library.
Challenger, go at throttle up.
We walked into the school library, and it was stone silent. I mean, it was filled with people. And of course, before everybody had been cheering, in the cafeteria. So we walk into the library, and it was just obvious something had happened, because it would not be that quiet for any other reason.
73 seconds into the launch, while Kevin was in the art room, the Challenger shuttle exploded, killing all 7 crew members on board.
Tonight, reporting from Washington.
It is the worst disaster in the history of the American space program, and President Reagan has declared a week of mourning for the 7 astronauts, 5 men and 2 women, who lost their lives on their way into space this morning.
Kevin and his classmates were sent home. Everyone, including faculty and students, processed the tragedy differently, he said. When they returned to the school the following day after the loss of their beloved teacher, they had an all-school assembly.
Anybody could talk, and that was really something. And we had, and everybody I talked to, we all remember that. We always talk about all being in the gym.
At the time of the tragedy, Kevin wasn't familiar with Christa McAuliffe's hometown of Framingham, which was over an hour away from his home in Concord. But that changed in 1999 when he moved to the area.
That was sad.
Kevin quickly became involved in Framingham's History Center, serving on the board and volunteering. It was at the History Center that he saw Christa McAuliffe's NASA spacesuit for the first time. Christa's suit is on loan from NASA to the History Center, where they also keep photos and other artifacts that honor her legacy. Elsewhere throughout the city, such as the McAuliffe branch of the Framingham Library and Framingham State University, McAuliffe's alma mater, honor her legacy and love for education as well. Their facilities are named in honor of her and signify a dedication to keeping her mission and memory alive.
So after she'd been named, she already started her training at that point.
And as Kevin looks through his 1986 yearbook, he can't help but reflect on the impact Mrs. McAuliffe had on his life too.
She was a wonderful person to know, and even before she became the first teacher in space and everything else happened, she was definitely one of the highlights of my high school experience.